Ruben Amorim is targeting Diomande as well as Geovany Quenda from Sporting. United are ready to pay Osimhen's release clause. Sekou Kone is earning Amorim's trust as he looks to make his Premier League debut this season. Ratcliffe wants to increase his stake in Manchester United. Dan Ashworth is blamed for going against the club in signing Matthias de Ligt, and Omar Berrada is clamping down on the club leaks with a warning to staff. All this plus more in today's video as we run through all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news that will keep you right up to date with everything. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video. Let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with... Let's go for the Europa League stuff first, in case you haven't seen it. So in the last 16, Manchester United have drawn Real Sociedad. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. I actually am quite concerned with that because we do not have a very good record against Spanish teams in Europe. So that's the least of the two. It was either them or AZ Alkmaar. I would have much preferred Alkmaar than Real Sociedad, just purely because we do not have a very good record against Spanish teams in Europe. So that's probably the toughest of the draws that we could have got. Beyond that, we could face either Lyon or FCSB, so Steaua Bucharest, in the quarterfinal if we were to get past Real Sociedad. I'm not looking too far ahead beyond that, though, because I actually do think that's a difficult draw for us because, as I mentioned there, we do not have a very good record against Spanish teams, and it is our last chance of getting Champions League football. We could still end up in the Europa League if we win the FA Cup, but this is one that actually, has a lot more weight on it this season as well, the Europa League. So get involved in the comments. What do you think of the Europa League draw? Now let's just quickly on some injury updates. So Manuel Ugarte, Lenny Yoro and Christian Eriksen are available versus Everton. Amorim's confirmed that in his press conference. Toby Collier's also close to returning in the coming weeks as well, which is good because, we can't be having Casemiro in midfield anymore. It's just really frustrating, but still no updates on, the fantastic duo in Mason Mount and Luke Shaw, who are still injured. It was funny, actually, I saw a story that said it's been over a year now since Luke Shaw last started a game for Manchester United. That is absolutely pathetic. Over a year for Luke Shaw, and again, it really annoys me, especially with all these cutbacks and job losses and stuff that we're still like someone gave Luke Shaw a 5-year contract on $100 grand a week, and he hasn't started a game for more than 12 months. That's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, good to get Ugarte back, especially in the midfield, because the midfield is the area that kind of worries me the most because, games are won and lost in midfield, and we looked absolutely woeful with Casemiro and Bruno in midfield against Tottenham. And potentially Eriksen could give us a little bit more going forward as well and fill it one of those kind of 10 positions. So it's good to have him back actually as well, because he could be handy to have, even just coming off the bench to give us another idea up front, if we need it in games, which we will do. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, another player who could be coming into our midfield, who I think... should be getting some chances going forward is Sekou Kone. So Manchester United youngster Sekou Kone is on course to be handed the opportunity to enjoy his first taste of senior action before the Premier League campaign closes, or comes to a close, thanks to earning head coach Ruben Amorim's trust during the early stage of his Old Trafford reign. And that came from Danny Ruston, Dean Jones via Give Me Sport, suggesting that Sekou Kone is in line to make his Premier League debut at some point in time between now and the end of the season. Remember, that was always meant to be the kind of the case for Sekou Kone, who was actually brought in potentially as a first teamer, but they've been taking their time with him to allow him to integrate not just into United but also to England and acclimatise and do all of these things as well. I think he looks like a really, really, he does look like a promising player. Whether he's quite ready to start Premier League games or not, we're going to wait and see. But some substitute appearances coming off of the bench. I mean, it would be nice if we could do that, but our midfield's in such a mess at the moment anyway that it's kind of thrown him in the deep end, but sometimes, life sink or swim sometimes. So I would like to see Kone given some more minutes. I'd rather see Kone getting some game time between now and the end of the season than Casemiro, personally, because it adds way more value to us as a club long term than it does short term, because Casemiro's, he's not entirely the future of Manchester United, but someone like Sekou Kone could be if they're allowed to develop properly. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, another young player who did make his debut against Tottenham was Chido Obi. So sources around the first team speak of Obi's humbleness and the impression he has made on Ruben Amorim and his staff across the last 3 weeks, the time period where he has really stepped up to become more of a factor in the senior side that came from Nave Salt. Chris Wheeler did some bits around his deal as well. So Arsenal made a lucrative contract offer to Chido Obi, and Mikel Arteta is understood to have intervened to try and map out his vision for the player's future, which included training with the first team and playing under 21s football this season, where the schedule allowed it, but it proved in vain. And also from Chido Obi's side, it is understood money wasn't the determining factor to head to Manchester United, but rather the feeling he had a better shot at cracking the first team. And all of that's been kind of proven right so far for Chido Obi, because Arteta was effectively saying, you can train with the first team and maybe you'll play with the under-21s and we'll give you more money. And he's like, no, I actually want to go to United because there is a clear pathway to the first team. And obviously he's made his first team debut, although for me personally, too little, too late. Should have been given a little bit more game time, because while it was nice to see him come on, didn't manage to get a touch on the football, and I felt it was a little bit too late at the end of the game, like 3 minutes to go to kind of bring him on. But it's still nice to kind of for him to be getting involved in the first team, albeit through an injury crisis. But it's kind of been proven right by Chido Obi that pathway to the first team is a lot more clearer at United, because we do give our youth an opportunity. And well-deserved as well, because he's been absolutely on fire, and he's already played games and bossed it in our 21s as well this season. So, but let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, Manchester United are ready to pay $50 million to sign Sporting's Ousmane Diomande, a target for Ruben Amorim. Diomande earns £8,000 weekly now, but his next deal will likely demand a big rise, with clubs vying to outbid each other. Now, that came from Sport Witness, kind of linking us with a potentially £50 million move for Diomande. Now, Geovany, Quenda and Diomande are expected to follow Ruben Amorim at Manchester United in the summer, with Quenda already looking like a done deal. Now, that came again from another story coming from Record, who are a decent Portuguese outlet when it comes to Portuguese players, suggesting the similar thing. We know the Quenda deal is quite far down the line. We've had Ben Jacobs, David Ornstein, multiple kind of Portuguese reports, all pretty much saying effectively it's not necessarily, I don't agree that it's a done deal, but it's a deal that we're kind of working on to try and get like a pre-agreement done with Sporting to bring him in the summer. When was the last time we did that? But also, again, linking us maybe with Diomande, obviously Gyökeres. We're going to get linked with loads of Sporting players between now and the summer. We just need to prepare ourselves for that. Again, keep an eye on it for you. Let me know what you think in the comments. And then just on Quenda, Manchester United and Barcelona have been following Geovany Quenda for months and appreciate his talent. They have spoken with agents and scheduled a new meeting to explore possible negotiations. Now, that came from Ekrim Connor, who's been linking us with literally everybody over the last couple of weeks. But there's no smoke without fire with Quenda. We've been discussing that for the last few weeks on the channel and in the comments and stuff. I do think that that's a deal that's quite far down the line and plausible. Some of the other kind of transfer stories are just stories, in my opinion. But let me get involved in the comments. Let me know what you think about that. Manchester United, Chelsea and PSG are all ready to pay Victor Osimhen's £62 million release clause in the summer. And that came from a Napoli outlet who are actually fairly decent when it comes to Napoli news, and we're all right, I think, with the whole kind of Garnacho situation and stuff in the winter, in the January. So a decent source, not the most credible though, but yeah, no, fairly good when it comes to Napoli news, suggesting that United, Chelsea and PSG are all ready to pay Victor Osimhen's £62 million release clause in the summer. More it's kind of going on, these stories about Osimhen. As much as I would like him, the less optimistic I am around it. Is that weird that we're getting loads more stories with Osimhen, and the more stories that come out, the less optimistic I am. Just purely for me, because of the obviously the price, the fact that we are, on a PSR tightrope and have to sell to buy, but also the wages as well. He's going to command a high salary. Chelsea can probably afford to pay a little bit more in wages, and definitely PSG could as well. And we're trying to reduce our wage bill, not to the point where, we're amongst the lowest earners, but we want to come away from paying like 300 grand a week to players that haven't proven themselves yet, because that's what's trapped a lot of our players in the situation that we are now. That's why we can't sell Casemiro. Look at what's going on with Anthony and Rashford, and countless examples. Like Mason Mount's on 250 grand a week, never available. Like all of these kind of really high wages for players that haven't proved themselves, I think could be the stumbling block with Osimhen personally. But he's definitely a player that I would take. And there is no smoke without fire. Loads of kind of links with him, but they're not coming from the most credible places. So I just want to wait for a little bit more credibility before getting too excited. But again, it'll come down to like the cost and the wages with Osimhen. But let me know what you think in the comments. Manchester United and Manchester City are among the prominent suitors for River Plate's Franco Mastantuono. Real Madrid, Inter Milan and Liverpool were also interested in the 17-year-old talent. That came via Inter Live, via Sport Witness, suggesting that United and City, amongst others, are all back in for Mastantuono. The reason I wanted to bring this story in is because we've been heavily linked with him before by some decent sources. But the news around him's gone really, really quiet recently since Amorim came in, pretty much. So he wasn't necessarily, it wasn't kind of believable that we might be going back in for him, or whether we'd stop looking at him as well. But it's another story suggesting that actually, yes, there is still interest in Mastantuono from United, because he's a very talented player. For those who don't know him, I found this on Transfer Market. A little bit of a write-up regarding him, saying Mastantuono, currently valued at 15 million euros, is one of the most exciting young players in the South American continent right now. He has recently been linked with Real Madrid, Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea and Barcelona. At just 17 years of age, he has already made 41 appearances for River's first team and has been compared to English star Phil Foden. He may just be the latest gem in Argentina's crown. So very, very highly regarded young player. Apparently his release clause is around £40 million. So again, it'll all come down to budget and competition, Are we in a position where we can kind of go? But there's what I kind of think on this is there's countless examples of players, specifically from River Plate actually as well, that we've missed out on that have gone on to be really good players. Enzo Fernandez was one, went to Benfica and obviously at Chelsea now, and he is apparently meant to be the next kind of up-and-coming big thing. So keep an eye on it for you. Definitely a player that I would kind of like us to be in for. But again, whether we'll have the money and the kind of pull this summer, who knows? Let me know what you think in the comments. Omar Berrada has launched an investigation into Old Trafford leaks and has warned staff in a bombshell email that revealed club information revealing club information will be considered gross misconduct, which could get them sacked. Isn't it ironic that the email telling staff or people at United to stop leaking stuff gets leaked to the media? Isn't that just typical Manchester United? Staff were told that additional measures are now being put in place to prevent the details of changes being released before official club announcements. Anyone disclosing information outside of the club is breaching their obligations and confidentiality, and we are very clear that this will be considered gross misconduct. To protect the club and its colleagues, additional measures are being put in place to prevent future breaches of confidentiality and also identify any persons responsible, gross misconduct, which could get them sacked. Now, I agree with them, clamping down and finally getting to the bottom of this kind of whole leak situation. It does my head in and drives me insane, talking about leaks and, this information's leaked, and it creates like a negative spiral around the club as well, and it's unnecessary and unneeded. It also gives an unfair advantage to our opponents every week if the team news is being announced. Remember the Derby game? It was 24 hours before the game. The team news was out. Obviously, we managed to win, but it was a disadvantage to us massively for that particular game. But I just think it's typical United that email has also now been leaked. So clearly, whoever's doing it doesn't give a shit, and they're just doing it. God knows why they're kind of doing it, but yeah, absolutely insane, isn't it? Typical Man United. The Glazers have an option within 6 months to sell the club and force Ratcliffe to sell his stake. Ratcliffe has an option to make his own offer first. According to a person familiar with the situation, Ratcliffe still wants to increase his stake in Manchester United if that option becomes available. Now, that came from a business outlet. Now, if you remember when the whole kind of takeover was announced and stuff like that as well, it was kind of reported that actually the Glazers, after so long, could still potentially put United up for sale. Please put the club up for sale and fuck off. But so Jim Ratcliffe would have first refusal on that as well. And apparently Jim wants to increase his stake at Manchester United, but all of that boils down to the Glazers because they own the club. They can do what they want with it. If they wanted to sell a small percentage, they can do that. If they want to put it up for sale, or if they want to stay, which is probably more likely, then they can do that as well. They are just, they're the stakeholders. They're the key to all of our problems. They're the ones that could solve all of our problems as well by putting some money into the club and paying off the debt and doing all of this stuff. Like, it's all on the Glazer family and their mismanagement of United, and the fact that we've spent £2 billion on having having the pleasure of having them own the club. It's just infuriating as well. But that would be I just hope they put it up for sale and just take the hint and fuck off. I genuinely do. But how realistic is that? Let me know what you think in the comments. So this story came out from Mark Ogden from ESPN, who is a good source of information, very credible, but also a shit stirrer as well. And he was talking about the whole kind of Dan Ashworth situation. And he came out with the following, saying that Dan Ashworth is known for building the structure of a club, building behind the scenes and getting the right people in place. What he isn't is a sporting director. He is not a guy who will pick up the phone to people in Spain, Italy, Germany, Turkey to find a player or to offload a player. The club didn't want Matthias de Ligt. He was a signing that was driven through by Ten Hag, and despite the fact they felt well stocked with centre-halves, United or Ashworth felt that because they'd just given Ten Hag a new contract, they have to show they have faith in him by signing a player he wanted. So you can say that was a weakness on Dan Ashworth's part. So that, again, from Mark Ogden, which was a bit of an opinion on that as well. Effectively, I don't know what his kind of goal is from that story, but it's full of holes anyway. Let's call it out, right? So saying that that effectively Dan Ashworth signed de Ligt to appease Ten Hag, but Ten Hag at the time was saying that this was a club recommendation and he went along with it because he was obviously a former player of his. So that becomes a case of who do you believe there. Secondly, it says on there that we felt well stocked with centre halves, which you could kind of argue to say we were, but we were also bidding for Jared Branthwaite at that time as well. So again, I'm going to call bullshit on it, because if we were not looking at a centre half, why did we make 3 bids for Jared Branthwaite then? Because that's well documented by credible sources that we were in for Jared Branthwaite. So again, full of holes, that particular story. Also as well, had we not signed de Ligt, because I think de Ligt's been one of our best, not one of our better players this season. Is he the best defender in the world? No, but is he? I don't think he's done anything particularly wrong to be hounded out the way that he has been recently in the media. Look at the rest of our centre-halves. Yes, we're well stocked. Well, Lindelof's made of breadsticks and is never fit. Johnny Evans has been out for months. Martinez is out now for potentially a year because he's just done his knee in. Maguire's got injury records and injury problems where he keeps picking up little niggly knocks. He's not quite as bad as Luke Shaw's injury record, but he is picking up a lot more injuries. And Lenny Yoro's out for the start of the season as well. So if we had not signed de Ligt, who would we have been playing at centre-half? Because everybody else that we've got has been injured a lot this season, or just not good enough to be in United. So actually, I think that the de Ligt decision turned out to be a pretty good one. Would you not agree? Let me know in the comments if you agree, if you disagree. But, either way, it kind of felt a little bit like he was trying to blame Dan Ashworth for everything that's gone wrong at United this season. I don't think that's the case. Is he the right man for the job? Clearly not, because we've sacked him. So something's kind of happening behind the scenes, whether it was him that was involved in recruitment, whether it was Ineos, whether it was Christopher Vivell or Ten Hag. Who cares? I actually think the summer transfer window last summer was all right. I think that de Ligt was a good signing. I think Mazraoui's been decent. Ugarte, we miss him when he's not there, so that shows that he's been a good signing as well. Lenny Yoro's up and coming. The only one you could question is Xerxes, but he's actually been all right recently as well, and is starting to kind of grow and perform, and now he's got his confidence and stuff like that as well. So actually, the problem at United is not last summer. It's the countless summers beforehand where we've just pissed money up the wall on players like Casemiro and give Luke Shaw a new contract and sign Mason Mount on 250 grand a week, give him the number 7 shirt, and he's made 13 appearances this season. They're the problems at United. Anthony, the list goes on. Just go for the United squad. And you could probably pick folk with the majority of the signings that were there before Ineos came in, or before Dan Ashworth came in, or before Vivell or Wilcox, or whoever you want. The problem is we need to get better at recruitment. That's the ultimate issue. We need to get better at recruitment. We need to sign, players that fit the club's vision, not just ones for a manager, because that causes problems as well. We need to find players that we think are actually fit for our style of play or the way we want to kind of build a club, and stick with that. And then everybody else needs to stop getting involved. We need a small handful of people that are all involved in that, rather than, you know, all of this kind of mismatching of players, and the manager has a veto, so he's recommending players and the scouts are recommending different players, and, you know, this person's recommending other players and stuff. All that needs to stop, because it just creates chaos. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Let me know what you think about all the other topics discussed in today's video, because that's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer news. Don't forget to smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.